May seeks a coalition with the DUP. Her two top aides quit. She sent her chief whip to Belfast to do a deal. ITV News understands cabinet jobs could be on offer. Also tonight, the London Bridge terrorists tried to hire a 7-ton truck, which could have killed many more. And Top Gear's Richard Hammond airlifted to hospital after a spectacular crash while filming.
This is ITV News with Alistair Stewart.
Good evening. A bruised and battered Theresa May discovered today just how lonely it can be at the top. With no majority in the Commons, a deal with the Democratic Ulster Unionists seemed her only option. Her team are just bringing the closing stages of talks tonight together. The DUP have been driving a hard bargain. Also, her own cabinet's made demands, insisting that her two top aides, Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill, resign. They did. Our political correspondent Paul Brand has the details.
Tonight, every step she takes as Prime Minister is a lonely one. Few advisers, few allies, only her husband at her side.
These are mine. These are all mine.
This is just one of her problems. 13 Scottish Conservative MPs keep Theresa May in power if they're joined by the Democratic Unionists. ITV News understands the Prime Minister wants a formal coalition with the Northern Irish Party. But in Scotland they ask, at what price?
What I spoke to the Prime Minister about yesterday was the need for a categoric assurance that talking with the DUP would not result in any rollback of LGBTI rights in the rest of the UK, because as the Conservative Party, we are the party of equal marriage. We introduced it to the House of Commons.
That is not something they have in Northern Ireland, where the DUP blocked equal marriage. Senior Conservatives are still negotiating here tonight, more likely over Brexit and investment. But those talks take place without the Prime Minister's closest advisers. Today, Nick Timothy and Fiona Hill both resigned. MPs complained they shared too much with one another at the expense of everyone else.
It cannot be right that there were people who were closer to the Prime Minister than her own cabinet, that people were engineering part of the policies in the manifesto without the knowledge of some of the cabinet. That cannot be right. We need a new style of governance, one that is going to be more inclusive.
But inclusive of Theresa May for how long?
This is the ritual humiliation of an unsuccessful Conservative leader by a party that is very, very angry indeed. It is basically the Conservative Party showing Theresa May who's boss.
Tonight, that is technically still her, but only at the whim of another party and the mercy of her own.
And Paul, fast-moving developments tonight.
Absolutely. Downing Street have confirmed in the past few minutes that the Democratic Unionist Party have agreed the outline of a confidence and supply arrangement with the Conservatives. Now, that is not a formal coalition like the Lib Dem Conservative one we saw a few years ago. Instead, the DUP will vote with the Conservatives on crucial issues, like, for example, a budget or a motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister. We don't know yet what the DUP asked for in return, but the Cabinet will have to sign this off on Monday, and the Prime Minister is going to have to hope she can rely on her friends in the DUP when she has so few elsewhere.
Paul, thank you. 1 week on, police have tonight lifted the last cordon around the scene of last weekend's terror attacks in London's Borough Market. It came as Scotland Yard revealed more details about the attack, which they now believe could have ended in many more lives. And as Richard Pallet reports, more details of the weapons used in the atrocity have also been released.
These were the 12-inch ceramic knives each attacker was carrying, exceptionally sharp, with leather binding to keep it strapped to their wrists. Inside the vehicle they jumped from, bags of gravel, quite possibly to add force to the crash, and 13 wine bottles filled with lighter fuel, petrol bombs that were never used. The van directly killed 3 people on London Bridge, but chillingly the intention had been to use something far bigger, a 7.5-ton truck similar to this one. Ringleader Khurram Butt had tried to get his hands on one just hours earlier.
We know Butt in particular, who we think was the ringleader of the 3, had actually made attempts to hire a 7.5-ton lorry. Unfortunately for him, he did not have sufficient payment in his account, and as a result we think he in essence went to plan B and hired a Renault van instead.
At 9:58 last Saturday evening, the van made the first of 2 safe crossings of London Bridge for hostile reconnaissance, so police believe. 8 minutes later, it sped up and was aimed deliberately at pedestrians. Within a minute, it had crashed into railings, after which the stabbings began. At 10:16, all 3 attackers are shot dead. Inside the flat that the attackers had rented here in East London, which they used as their safe house, was found the equipment to make the petrol bombs and also the fake suicide vests. Forensics have determined here at least the 3 men acted alone. Also discovered was an English copy of the Quran open at a page describing martyrdom. 2 more men have been arrested overnight on suspicion of preparing acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, tonight, many London venues and landmarks will be raising money directly for the Victims Fund, a way for the city to come together exactly 1 week on. Richard Pallo, ITV News.
For the second time in his career, the television presenter Richard Hammond has survived an horrific car crash. The former Top Gear host was filming in Switzerland for his current show, The Grand Tour, when an electric supercar that he was driving crashed and caught fire. He escaped with just a fractured knee. Now, that comes 11 years after he suffered life-threatening injuries whilst recording an episode of Top Gear. His co-star Jeremy Clarkson said of today's accident, "It was the biggest crash that I've ever seen, but incredibly and thankfully, Richard seems to be mostly OK." Finally, they are ancient football foes, and the fact that Scotland were playing England in a World Cup qualifier in Glasgow today only added extra spice. The match, which took place amid heightened security, had an action-packed ending, as Peter Smith reports from Hampden Park.
This is the oldest rivalry in football, but you'd have never known pre-kick-off. Fans in Glasgow mixed happily and peacefully. In truth, fears of hooliganism have been surpassed by fears of much worse violence, and after Manchester and London, there was heightened security at Hampden, and a minute's silence, impeccably observed. The home fans let out their famous Hampden roar. But it was England who had the best chances, and the thin blue line was eventually broken. England's substitute Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain somehow found a way through man mountain Craig Gordon.
Going for goal himself and scoring.
But with just 5 minutes left, everything changed. Scotland won a free kick in front of the England fans. Lee Griffith stepped up. That was the first goal England had conceded in these qualifiers, but it wasn't the last. Scotland looked on course, but in the final seconds, Harry Kane equalised. And this thrilling match at Hampden ended 2-2.
What a finish!
Peter Smith, ITV News, Glasgow.
And there are extended highlights of that game here on ITV at 11:25 tonight. But that's it from us for now. The late news is at 11:05. Till then, very good evening to you. Bye-bye.